What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, that's right. It is a very, very special Thursday morning, because it's a Thursday morning that sees the season finale of Star Trek Prodigy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. There was no show last week, partially because of Christmas, but also because I wanted to do parts 1 and 2 of this episode, which is Supernova, together. I felt like the story I hate, as much as I'm a Star Trek fan, and they always have given us cliffhangers historically, I hate them. And I wanted to make sure that instead of keeping us on a cliffhanger, we got a chance to talk about the episode entirely. So sit back, relax, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. By the way, thanks so much for clicking on the video, because we're going to talk right now about Star Trek Prodigy, Season 1's finale, Parts 1 and 2 of Supernova. So here we go. Let's go. Let's talk about this. When last we left off, those of you who are playing at home, by the way, spoilers if you're new to the channel, definitely spoiler warning. So make sure that you have seen the show, the episodes. If you haven't, go watch them. They're on Paramount Plus. By all means, shoo. Once you get back, let's get into it. So the episode, the penultimate episode, part 1 rather, is in the first season of Supernova, begins with Vice Admiral Janeway arguing with her guard, informing them that essentially bad things are about to happen. The guard tries her best to kind of ignore him and whatnot, and then ultimately you find out aboard the Protostar, they're like, oh, well, Janeway's going to help us and this and that, and Dal's like, yeah, about that. Turns out he may not have done a good job while in Janeway's body, which obviously we all know. That's when you see that Asencia convinces Admiral Jellicoe that it would be prudent to hurry up and board the Protostar, and he's like, yeah, absolutely, get a crew over there as soon as possible. And so again, of course, the character of Jellicoe is one of those characters that is near and dear to my personal heart. I love that character. So the Dauntless begins to kind of open fire on the Protostar and whatnot. She makes it over. She causes the whole thing to happen. She literally gets over there and manages between her General Grievous, four-armed robot guy, is brutal. He takes down everybody. There's this once they board, everyone's like, we got to take him out, blah, 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 this and that. And they're going, and it's rough. And golly, she does a brilliant job just decimating them. And unfortunately, it ends up happening. She makes it down to communications. She ends up turning off, they turn off the Janeway hologram, and she manages to do exactly what she intended to do, which is she opens all hailing frequencies to all of Starfleet. That marks the beginning of the end as you begin to see all of the ships, I love cartoon or animation mentality. Every ship, which normally has white, you see their white lights, every ship suddenly turns red. The whole fleet is red. And sure enough, they start firing everywhere and the whole bit. The ship is starting to lose its shields very quickly. And so what happens is Rock Talk comes up with the idea to essentially say, look, if we can't use the proto drive to get out of here, then let's take all that power and put it into our shields. And they start doing their best to maneuver because they got to figure out something. And so Janeway, as she's in the jail cell still. She's talking to her guard. She's still talking to the guard. And finally you find out Janeway's guard reveals that they have history. She's going to let her out. And she explains to her that she's one of the telepathic Brinari. Remember the Brinari? It was from Star Trek Voyager Counterpoint. Counterpoint? Counterattack? Counterpoint. It's definitely Counterpoint. And if you remember that episode, she's apparently one of the little girls from the children from the episode. And so it was great. One of the refugees. And they took them in, and so there's a moment where they're convinced. Dal and the others are like, yeah, we're going to make sure we can all this and that, and joining Starfleet. But anyway, it's a sad moment. It's a really sad moment, and it's because you're like, Rock's gonna say something, and Gwyn stops her because Gwyn's clearly of the mind, hey, he's our captain right now. We have to keep him. He's got to be sharp. He's got to be sharp. He's got to be on point, on game, if you will, and that's important, super important. So then, as they're fighting everything, oh yeah, dude, four-armed General Grievous guy just decimates the heck out of them. But anyway, she managed to open in the communication, everything starts happening, and then she leaves. She escapes. And so we may eventually see her again in the future, who knows, but she escapes. And at this point, the Diviner turned on her. He's dying. And he gives some last words, and ultimately he dies, and his essence or energy goes in. You see Gwyn's, they're look like tattoos and stuff light up, and you sort of know that she's gonna have to grieve his loss soon, but it's not gonna happen right now, because right now they gotta focus on what's happening. All of a sudden, as they're all talking, their languages stop. And you literally hear Rock goes from talking like a little kid to suddenly talking like a creature, and you suddenly hear Gwyn's real voice, and nobody can communicate. And this is probably one of the best actual in-world examples of the universal translator I have ever seen. I'm sure there's been others that have been really similar, but this one really captured my imagination in the way it handled it. And so what ends up happening is Gwyn was taught to understand the languages of many of these species so that she could better pit them against each other. It's what her father used to say. So they have the idea they have to reach out to other non-Federation ships, because non-Federation ships won't use the same Federation technology, which means clearly you're gonna end up it's gonna be a clean signal. You don't have to worry about anybody taking out the ship or whatever else. And so that's exactly what happens. She reaches out, first person that gets on the horn, my Klingon brothers. I was a Klingon in my persona when I was part of Starfleet, the international fan club, and so she immediately starts talking to them and is basically like, hey, we need your help. And she begins to give one of the, and then she sends out a hailing frequency to everybody out there, and she's like, look, we got to do this. She has this wonderful speech about what Starfleet means, and that everybody needs a place to be able to belong. And then thinking that they're not going to make it, thinking that nobody heard them, all of a sudden, bam, fleets start showing up. Klingons, all kinds of Klingon ships show up, Vulcan ships show up, a Gorn transport vessel, you see a Ferengi, looks like a Ferengi ship, Clash type ship, and everybody starts showing up. It's a wonderful moment. It's a wonderful endgame, Rise of Skywalker moment in terms of the cavalry has come. But right on the heels of the cavalry, more Starfleet ships. And that's when Janeway explains the entirety of what they are dealing with it's literally, when a Starfleet vessel is in danger, it automatically sends out a distress signal, and other ships start coming. And once they are damaged, and it's literally, this is going to be a complete decimation, an utter annihilation if something doesn't happen. There you go, now you know, and if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. But don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging just like that. So, my know-it-all index rating for Part 1, Supernova Part 1. This episode was firing on all thrusters, to use a phrase, and it 100% does. I see this episode as a straight up 9. Straight up 9. It still didn't knock my socks off, but meaning, because I have to make 10s worthy and hard to get, and so in order for them to mean anything, and so for me this episode gets a 9, straight up hardcore 9. So now, with that number out of the way, with episode 1 out of the way, let's move on to the part 2 that just aired today. It's today's episode. Here we go. So the episode this week, literally on the heels of last week, shows up right where Supernova Part 1 left off, and it doesn't take very long for them to figure out a solution. The solution's pretty simple. If you destroy the Protostar, you will destroy the device. You will at least stop, the damage will stop. You can't undo it, but you can stop it. And in true Starfleet fashion, they very quickly realize we're going to have to destroy the ship. But to do that, when you destroy a proto-drive, when you have a warp core breach that big of that type of technology, speaking as an engineer, it will utterly decimate most star systems. This would be that much bigger. So they come up with the idea to, if you take it into slip drive while you're exploding it, it will pace out or spread out the damage, thus making it less of a massive impact. It'll lower the possibility of all the damage and whatnot. And so Dal is ready because Dal he has finally learned that he, as an augment, he won't have a place in Starfleet, and he decides he's going to do everything he can to make sure the others do. And so he's willing to stay because the autopilot and everything else are done and destroyed. That's when Holo Janeway comes to the conclusion, listen, I can do this. I'll stay. You guys go. I have your command codes. I can do this thing you need done. And they're like, we don't want to lose you. And she said, don't worry. We can copy me into an isolinear chip. Very simple. Of course, it's never that simple. And what happens is that Holo Janeway realizes she has evolved, similar to how the Doctor on Voyager had evolved. She's way too big to just be thrown on a floppy disk. You know, you're not going to sit here and be like, oh, by the way, here, we're going to go ahead and just pop you in here, blah, 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 this, you massively intelligent, sentient creature, but it's going to be all on here. And so she can't do that, but she doesn't want to tell them that. So in again, true Starfleet fashion, she lies. She lies. And gives Dal an isolinear chip and says, I'll see you guys soon, this and that. They get on the thing and they go, and it's very unceremonious in how it happens. She takes a moment and tells them how honored she was to have served with them. But when it's all said and done, there's literally there's a new nebula-looking thing in the stars, in the heavens, if you will. And yeah, she manages to, they do what they intended to do. And you see them all on the shuttle, the escape shuttle. They really quick had the hardware replicator do exactly that. It replicated a giant shuttle for them to take and go and whatnot. And so when they get on the ship, they are when they get on the shuttle, rather, they try to turn. They're like, Janeway's going to want to see this, blah blah. And they go to, and it's a message. Holo Janeway left them a message explaining the situation and telling them that it was still her honor, and very much letting them all know that they're going to find their place. And of course, she's very anticipatory because Rock's like, we don't know how to navigate, blah blah. And she's like, I'm sure you're worried and wondering how we're going to get where we're going. And she goes, if what I've witnessed is any indication of your capabilities, I have no doubt you're going to land. It's an emotional moment, man. This Nickelodeon series has just punched me in the gut, and yeah, it was particularly good. I enjoyed it. We're back in San Francisco. Janeway and they're discussing everything, and then you find they arrive. The shuttle arrives on Earth, and so everyone goes. And next thing you know, they're in front of a tribunal. And it's like, you impersonate Starfleet officers, stolen Federation technology, blah, 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 all these things. And Janeway's defending them. Hardcore, and just as you'd expect her to. And she makes the argument, even for the augment, she makes the argument that there are 26 Federation life forms that make him up. And by the way, his augments were not to enhance him. He's not super strong, he's not super intelligent. They were designed to combine him, but there are 26 member Federation worlds who are part of his DNA. And she says if there's a better living embodiment of Starfleet and the Federation and what our ideals are, she's like, I don't know what it is. And ultimately, they're waiting outside, and she comes out and she says 5 of them have been granted entry into the Academy. Everyone assumes Dahl's the one who's not going. She says, no, you made it. And then Gwendal is the one who decided not to, who is not going to be joining. And so she's realizing they've committed. First contact with her species hasn't happened yet. The other thing that has happened is that Janeway, the hologram Janeway, took the time she mirrored the Protostar's last setup, how it was set up to go and do what it was supposed to do originally. Its original mission with Chakotay and all them. And it created a stable touch point between our point in time and the future where he went. They're gonna mount a rescue to rescue Chakotay and them. And I know we are getting a season 2, which hopefully will give us more of that. You start to see them all in their new. They're not cadets in the academy because it wouldn't be fair, but they are special warrant officers. They're essentially petty enlisted people, not officers. It's great. It's Miles O'Brien. Before he became an ensign. It's a lot of these junior grade officers who a lot of these lower deckers type people who before they eventually become full blown ensigns and whatnot, or get promoted to something for a field. They are given. She's used to giving field commissions, man. Literally, it's what they did when they adopted the Maquis into the Voyager crew. Anyway. Yeah, and then they're shown their new ship because she has their pick of the ships. And it's a new Protostar class vessel, and they're like, "Oh, is that going to be our ship?" And she's like, "No, I got something bigger planned for us." I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's exciting!" So yeah, man, there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what is my know-it-all index for this episode? The finale for season 1, Supernova Part 2. You're getting my 10, man. You're getting my 10. You did good. You did good. I didn't know where this was going to go. As a very, I don't know if I'm xenophobic, but as a person who's like, I don't know, man, I tell you what, it was intense. It felt way off the mark, but I was with it, and then it came all the way back and felt very much like home. And I love the story they've told. It is very Starfleet. It is very much us. And so, yeah, man, I'm excited for what the future holds for Star Trek Prodigy. I'm thrilled to be living and existing in this point in time, man. You can't get better than this. So, all right. Well, hey, man, comment below. Let me know what you thought of the episodes. And I would absolutely love to just kind of keep this dialogue going. I can't wait. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll see you guys on the other side. Never forget, everyone loves a movie.